The kids have been learning to drive in the little Suzuki and it's let them down a couple of times. It's been hard to start. We whacked another battery in it, but it sounds like it's more than battery. So this is how we check the alternator. And before we go any further at all, I can hear a rattle. And that rattle tells me that either the fan belt's loose or maybe the alternator is a little bit wonky already before we even get to this stage. So let's have a look. I'm just putting the voltmeter on. 12.127 it's showing. And if I rev the motor up, I'm not getting any change at all. That should be enough. It should be showing about 13 to 14 volts now. 14 and a half is really nice. Now we'll just try it off the back of the alternator. Reaching in here. You'd never do this with the engine running, would you? You'd have to be an idiot. Straight off the back of the alternator. 12.37. No. Definitely got an issue. We'll switch her off. Now with the little Zook, it's really easy to reach in and feel that. First thing is, the fan belt's really loose, but look at this. Can you hear that? That's the front spindle on the alternator flopping around up and down. Okay, one more thing we can check just to make sure of that. Just start the motor again. Really, seriously, be very careful when you do this. I'm just doing a stethoscope. Yep, I can hear the front bearing in the alternator is shot. Okay, alternator's got to come out. Fair chance that's going to be the problem. Sounds a bit dead. Okay, I'm just ripping off the earth strap, which is the first thing you do before you do any electrical work. And we'll just dive in. Have a look, what size is that? Maybe that size, will it? It might be. Next thing to do is to take the lead off the alternator, which in this case is held on by a screw. That's the beauty thing about old trucks. I mean, this thing's only 20 years old, but everything on it's just a little bit stiff and gnarly, as you'd expect. Now, with any alternator, as a rule, if you can get to it, some of these modern ones are a bit harder, you'll always have something that you can adjust it with. One screw on a bit of a ramp, and straight away I can see this screw on this ramp is out as far as it can go. So, you know, fan belt's loose, alternator's almost hanging off in the breeze. And then there'll be an axle that it pivots on underneath. I might have to hop underneath to do this one. We'll have a look. Oh, look at that. I've just undone the adjustment and it's nearly fallen off. That's interesting. There's the adjusting bolt. Not much of it. But it's only a tiny alternator. There's the fan belt. Look at that, well polished, and if you look at it that way, you can see that it's narrower in the V, which means it's a little bit worn, quite a lot worn actually. Okay. And there's our problem. You might have noticed I didn't have to undo any bolts. That's because there weren't any underneath. It's lost them somewhere. So, you know, I think we just found the reason why the alternator has eaten itself, and also why it was so loose. Because it should be pivoted here, and there's no bolt. It's gone. How tough is the little Suzuki? It's still working. The alternator's still there, still sitting there, all just on the adjustment. And now that I spin this, it doesn't seem so loose. So what I'm going to do now is check it. That could be all right. You know how I'm going to check it? I'm going to find a bolt, put it all back together, see if it works.